You're listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.
Welcome to the Mammal Watching podcast with me, John Hall in New York.
And me, Charles Foley in Minneapolis.
Well, Charles and I are delighted to be joined today by Harriet Kemigisha from near her home in Kibale, Uganda. Harriet is the owner of Harriet Tours, which have been running for 14 years or so. I think it's fair to say they started life as a birding company, but in the last few years, still doing birding, but they've been doing more and more mammal tours. And Harriet burst onto the mammal watching scene after Tom and Alex, aka the Hard Boys, as Harriet christened them, took a mammal watching trip with her back in 2020. It was during COVID, and I remember they saw an extraordinary amount of mammals. I had no idea Uganda was so good, and also gave Harriet rave reviews about how fabulous she was as a person, how well organized the trip was, how great a spotter she was, and how much fun she was to be with. So a few months later, I went with my kids to Uganda, and we also had a great 10 days with Harriet. And since then, she's been doing more and more mammal trips. And as we'll discover, she has been finding some of the hardest to find mammals in Africa. So Harriet, welcome to the podcast. It's so lovely to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Harriet, it is great to meet you. And hopefully one day I'll be able to meet you in person.
I'm really looking forward to meeting you too.
So Harriet, can you start off perhaps by telling us a little bit about your background and how you actually got involved in the tour guiding business?
I'm born and raised in a small village of Bigodi in Western Uganda, right at the edge of Kibale National Park. Growing up, for sure, was more of, if you've been to anywhere in Africa, the normal childhood girls you meet going to schools, waving with torn dresses, barefooted. It was a normal childhood village girl that I've had throughout my, girlhood stages, going to primary schools in my locality, schools within my village, walking, I would say 5 kilometers going to school and 5 kilometers coming back every day, of course, with my friends. So I attended primary 1 to primary 7 in Bigodi Primary School. That is still the village where I am right now, where I'm operating from right now. I also started high school from senior 1, unfortunately couldn't finish up. I dropped out. A reason being my parents died when I was 9 years and was left in the hands of my grandparents. And my grandfather was basically a forester, like a poacher, depending on his entire life in the forest, setting in snares in the forest. This is Kibale National Park. By then, there was no much restrictions in the national park. It was still under the management of Kibale Forest Reserve. The park was not yet gazetted as a national park like it is now, meaning that is between 85 to early 90s, because Kibale National Park was gazetted in 1993 as a national park. And since then, there was much restrictions, no more going back to the forest. There was no more hunting, no more firewood collection. So that's the time my grandfather really did much of the hunting. And because he liked me, most times he would go with me, like to help carry the meat he had, he had roasted. He would basically target the duikers, red and blue duikers. That was the most animals that they targeted. Of course, he wasn't alone. He mostly moved with many of his friends in the neighborhood. He managed though to push me up to that level in 2004. That's the time Kafred was also training guides in the local communities. Kafred is a community-based conservation organization that was formed at the edge of Kibale National Park by the local communities, offering walks to tourists who have come, for example, to see chimpanzees in the national park, and they would offer this as a side activity for, it's very good for primates and birds as well. So you'd see chimpanzees in Kibale National Park and they come outside, like at the forest edge, to see the many birds in the open space and many primates. One of my late mom's friends saw me really struggling. Remember, I had dropped out of senior 5 and I almost had no future. For sure, like, you know, hope was almost gone for my future. And he said, Harriet, you're a brilliant girl. Why don't you train with Kafred? I'm like, okay. I've always been, you know, introduced to nature at a young age by my grandfather. And here comes Kafred. It's a community-based. They won't charge me any money to train. It's a matter of me going and registering with them. Then I start training as a guide, learning about primates and birds. By then, there were also many researchers coming from all over the world. There was one guy called Malcolm doing birds observatories of Uganda. So I joined him as well. You know, growing up, I almost knew every animal, but in the local language. I knew most birds in the local language. My joining Kafred, these community conservation programs helped me a lot to really see my first introduction to see birds in the guidebooks, see these primates in the guidebooks, because I only knew them in my local language. And most of the behaviors, identifying them from male to female, all this for sure came in when I joined Kafred. I stayed in Kafred training, and you know, I was not employed. There were other guides already employed. I would only get a chance to guide when everyone else, all the guides are already gone. And when there was space, like, oh, all the guides are gone, more visitors are coming. Okay, Harriet has been training. She's already good. Come and take up these clients. I would take up the clients and, you know, surprisingly did very well. I knew the primates already. I knew the birds. And this is like a 2 to 3 hour walk, identifying birds, great blue turacles, you know, all the ashy red colobus, low-hoist monkeys, mangabees. It's a very rich, small wetland that you really see a lot within a short time of, you know, of your walk. I would come in and we had this visitor comments book that visitors have to leave a comment about their experience. I got several comments that were actually very good and talking about Harriet is a good guide. We had a very good time with her. It kept up, you know, like that I guided for about a year in Kafred, not getting salary. I would only depend on tips, small tips, you know, when they appreciate, they give you tips. And of course, I was waiting in case an opportunity comes, I'll get employed maybe one day if a need comes and start getting salary like any other guides. Right then, Uganda Wildlife Authority is a government agency that is responsible for the management and protection of wildlife in Uganda. And they were the ones managing Kibale National Park. They advertised jobs. That was in 2004, yes. And the good thing with this organization, they consider getting their workers from communities neighboring these protected areas. And I happened to qualify to be one of them. I did my interviews and passed them. So I got a job, my first job, to start earning a salary with Uganda Wildlife Authority in 2004. So from there, we went to a paramilitary training, you know, because they prepare you for different departments. And my first deployment then was dealing with poachers. I was mostly conducting patrols to do with anti-poaching in the national park. And to me, this was really fun. Reason being, I knew most of the poachers within our localities because they were hunting with my grandfather. So this job to me was interesting. I knew where to start from, even when we went on operations, like finding out who is poaching, which weapons are they using. I knew everything. I knew where they hide them because I knew where my grandfather used to hide them and rangers coming to look for them. It was really easy for me. We could use both, force, like law enforcement, and sensitizing them, like, look, this is bad, you shouldn't be poaching, and there's tourism coming. You can earn more when you conserve these animals. And yeah, because even by then, my grandfather had completely stopped hunting. He later died in 2007. He was extremely happy for my job. And every time he wanted meat, because he loved meat, that was entirely his meal. I could buy him meat, and he was a very happy old man, proud of me doing what I'm doing. And it's really worked well in sensitizing the rest of his friends who were poaching with him. I worked with law enforcement for also 1 year. Usually Uganda Wildlife Authority sit and changes departments. And right there were some gaps in tourism. That is again another department, tourism department, and they wanted more guides in Kanyanshu, in Semliki. They picked me up to join tourism, and that's where for sure, like, my passion was. I was extremely happy to be called and start guiding. Joining Kanyanshu is the visitor center, like the main spot for tourism in Kibale National Park. The main attraction there being chimpanzee tracking and also bird watching. I already had the background of, primates and birding. It was easy for me to join and start working straight away. I started guiding and learning from job. Remember, you would find there your superiors, those other old guides, you learn from them about trail systems. But for me, the trail system wasn't a big deal because I already have that, forest in my history. It took me about 2 weeks, and usually takes 2 months for every new guide to take tourists out. You first train the forest trail systems before you're given a group to take out. For me, because of my history with the forest, it took me 2 weeks, and I started guiding. Basically, I was more into primates, chimpanzees, and birds. I guided with Kibale National Park for close to 6 years. And in 2005, that's the time when I rediscovered a species of bird that was almost never seen for 50 years. It was close to, being declared extinction. But here it was. I was guiding and I found this bird. I was always going beyond my limits, much as I'm guiding chimps, but I'm into birds, I'm into insects and reptiles, any moving creature that comes on my way. I was always, keen on that.
What bird was it, Harriet?
Oh yeah, that's the green-breasted Pitta.
Okay.
Pittas are almost everywhere in the world, Asia, Africa, but this particular one was almost the one most of the birders who hunt Pittas, like people who are specialized in hunting species, families, was the one that was really hard to get. I discovered this bird, rediscovered, sorry, because it was mentioned to be there, but no one has seen it in the last 50 years.
That's amazing, because this isn't just a boring little warbler, it's a big, beautiful pitta. So that's a real find. Wow, I didn't know.
It's one of those beautiful birds for sure, because you could see the bright red, bright blues, green bird jumping, making short flights. And, it was really very attractive. And how I found this bird, I was guiding this group of tourists. Coming back, I lost my way. I was actually lost. I didn't know my way back. I was trying to figure out, oh my God, how will I get out of this forest? But of course, I didn't tell them that I was lost. I pretended like I'm still looking for more chimps. I'm still listening, like trying to figure out. The good thing, I had a walkie-talkie and communicated to my colleague, Godfrey. I'm like, Godfrey, I'm completely lost. But I'm seeing this beautiful bird. It's a pitta and it's making short flights. I've never seen this. I even don't know how to connect you, get here. Godfrey was also out with another group of tourists, but out of my range. Like I could not, he was out of my range, but we still could communicate. Then he asked me, where exactly are you? I told him, Godfrey, I'm lost. But in the local language, remember, so these guys were not hearing what we're communicating about. I'm lost. There's no way I'd know where I am right now. Then he asked me, do you hear those chimps calling? I'm like, yes, I've just heard them calling. He told me to follow the calls of the chimps until I meet him. So I followed the direction of the chimps. Chimps were really calling until I got him. And there was a big fig tree with, ripe figs. There were many chimps. Godfrey got me there. I'm like, oh, thank God. So he asked me, where is this bird? I told him it's about 500 meters from this direction. And then Godfrey was like, can we take this direction? Much as clients were done seeing the chimps, everything was like done, time out. We told the clients that we are heading back to the camp now. But between me and Godfrey, we knew we were going back to the same direction where I saw the bird. We looked around and we couldn't see the bird, but that was not the end of the story. We came back to the camp and said bye to our clients. I started writing a report and informing the Uganda Bird Guides Club about this bird. Luckily enough, there was one Spanish guy. He's a fanatic birder. He had just left Kibale 2 days ago and was already in Maction Falls. So when he heard the news, he said, I'm dropping everything. We must drive back to Kibale and find this bird.
Of course.
They called me. I'm like, you remember the spot? I could not remember the spot very well, but I also relied on Godfrey because he was a senior guide and he knew the forest exact spot where we saw the chimps and he could move around. These are pittas, they are territorial. So we moved around the same area. You know what surprised me? Birders are birders. We reached the area. Within 20, 30 minutes, I heard Ignacio say, oh my God, I've seen it. He was actually shaking, almost dropping his binoculars. And then he's like, oh, there are two, there's another one. I'm like, wow. I also got the chance now to see the bird very well, because by then we only had one guidebook. And this guidebook was only illustrating the African pitta, not the green-breasted pitta. So we clearly confirmed that this is a green-breasted pitta, and the news were spread all over the world. So many birders started really coming. You can't imagine how many groups of birders we got that year. The second year, every time I was like fully booked. Everyone was coming. And since then,
just to say, so Ignacio was actually the original hard boy then.
Oh yes, for this particular species, he was. He was, and he left me with his big camera. He told me, Harriet, I'm leaving you with this camera. I didn't know how to operate a camera. Take a picture and send it to me. Let me proceed with the rest of my trip. Because he really had tight schedules and he had to miss Maction Falls and go somewhere else. But his mission was accomplished. Leaving me with his camera was not enough. He started Mbiriza project and started birding trainings, funding Uganda Bird Guides Club for more site guides. Like, he really appreciated how important site guides, local guides are into this world, you know? Yeah.
Fantastic. What a story. And I've just realized that the Ignacio, I think you're talking about, is Ignacio Ufera.
Yes,
right?
yes, he's
Yeah,
the
who I
one.
know very well. He also likes his mammals, and he's been on trips with me. So
Really?
that's really great to hear. I didn't hear this story though. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, yes, so that was my part in Kibale National Park, working with Uganda Wildlife Authority. Getting into Harriet tours, I will say, you know, you've like seen it all. Kibale National Park is a very rich park. I'd seen many primates, different behaviors with chimpanzees, hunting, inter-community aggression, you know, seeing all the birds. I was like, okay, I think I need to move on. I need to see what happens in other parks, like Samliki, Maction Falls. You know, when you're a guide, like a ranger guide, you're only confined in one place, and it was really getting boring for me, working in Kibale forever. Like, every morning you go to job, back home, go to job, back home. I resigned my job in 2009 and started freelancing, working for many different companies. I had already, you know, made my name. Everyone knew Harriet is specialized in birds. She knows birds. So many companies would call me and give me dates of when they need me to work for them, lead their tours. I survived very well on that. I freelanced. Doing that freelance job was another challenge in its own way. You know, being a female in a male-dominated, you know, industry, you take up this trip and you're leading a birding trip. This is a job that I knew very well, and I had learned all the birds. Somehow you're the leader, and you, let's say you tell your driver, let's use this truck, they will want to control you somehow because, you know, you're female. Like, they need to tell you what to do, and yet you knowing what you should be doing. It was another big challenge until, like I said, well, enough is enough. I think in this kind of freelancing world, let me start up my own company, and Harriet was coming up.
So that's an incredible story, Harriet, from the going out into the forest barefoot with your grandfather to help him collect his meat to setting up your own tour agency. Incredible. So you started obviously with the fame, especially of the Green-breasted Pitta. You started as a birding company, but you've now discovered the joys of mammal watching too. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened?
Well, when I set up Harriet tours, I was, you know, basing on my previous experience with the clients that I've already guided. What do they want? What do they mostly inquire for? And I looked back, I'm like, almost 70% of the inquiries or the clients that I've already guided were not only birders, but also interested in mammals. And, you know, I'll come to Alex Meyer and Toma Ben Yehuda later. The type of mammals for sure we concentrated on were these common ones, you know, talk of lions, gorillas, chimpanzees, the obvious ones you really see. We never thought of going deeper into real, you know, deeper into mammals until recently. So every time we would cost up a trip was basically mammal watching, birding, and general wildlife tours, combining birding and primates, basically gorillas and chimps and birds and the rest of, you know, these common monkeys, common primates that we see. That's what almost everyone packages for their clients. I did not think of going deeper than that until recently, for sure, when we started the real mammal watching. Almost every, you know, every birder, this is really my experience, every birder they are doing birding without boundaries. They would appreciate and would love to take time to watch every living creature. This is what I know so far.
Good to hear and interesting. I like birding without boundaries. That's
Mhm.
that's lovely. So, I mean, at least from the traffic on the website we see now with people traveling with you, the number of trips, of mammal watching trips you're running seems to have grown very quickly. Do you know why?
That is really, yeah, it's a very good question. I would say that started recently, John, in 2001, when, the world had almost closed and tourism suffered most. We got this inquiry from Toma. He was inquiring, wanting to travel to Uganda alone, and later said, I have a friend who's likely to join, and then they joined.
This is 2021, correct?
Yeah, 2021.
2021, right, yeah.
He gave us a list. I'm like, oh my God. Toma gave us a list of mammals he really wanted to see. I chatted with Joel, one of my drivers. I'm like, Joel, look at this list. It's like most of the species I've never seen, even heard of, or only seen once. I'm like, you know what? Because we've been struggling, we don't have jobs. We've really been, let us take up this trip. Based on our birding skills and our birding fanatic clients who have really gone sometimes deeper in, like we've dealt with very fanatic birders, we will still use the same methods to deal with this list. It was a very comprehensive list. Talking of Lord Dobby's Anamalo, mentioning of Congo chloris otters, something I've only seen once, and I'm in the field every day for 10 years. So this is like, species Toma wanted to see. I told Joel, let us deal with this, take up the trip, and we meet, we see what happens. We met Toma and Alex Meyer. They gave us their list again. They had something written on their papers apart from what they sent us. And you know what? They were very, very cooperative. We would work out things together. Let's see, do you think this is possible? How best can we work it out? So looking at times, working day and night, this is active. I've never seen a Lord Dobby's Anamalo in early evenings. It's usually late, extremely late in the night, midnight, past midnight. So how are we going to find this? This means we are going to work day and night. Their list is really comprehensive. We moved on with the boys and everything seemed really well. They were interested in bats, in everything that really moved, and very quick photographers. That's one thing we've always said, wow. Something crosses within a blink of an eye. Toma is already having a picture. Alex is having a picture. Like, wow, this is now done. Not like sometimes you go out and you're looking for a species. It's just a glimpse and you have to repeat again. Oh, I didn't see it, just cross. So they were very, very cooperative in that way. And the trip list was big and we did our best for sure to deliver. And their trip report for sure has brought us so many clients. Since 2021, I would say we've so far received about 15 trips. Wow. Everyone coming, we've read about Toma's report. So yeah. And it has not only ended there. We've again moved on to see more species that we never saw with them, but using their skills and energy, you have to keep going, even if you have a list of what someone wants, and if time allows, weather is good, keep going. Like we've always moved beyond limits. Like we've seen adverts, we've seen these eastern portals. We never used to, the time I've worked with Kibale National Park, I never used to even think this creature do exist. But right now I can almost guarantee we've identified places where it's like 95% you'll not miss an eastern portal in Kibale National Park. You'll not miss Lord Dobie's Anamaloa in Kibale National Park. So like things were there before, but because we are not really moving, not going beyond our boundaries, we just kind of ignored them. But yeah, I really thank Toma for having traveled with us and putting us in this mode, Yeah.
That's great. That's great to hear. And these 15 trips, are these basically people coming really just for mammal watching, or are there also some people who are birders and say, but I hear that you also can show us, these really interesting mammals, so they do a combination of both?
I would say 70% mammals, really, 70% mammals, a little bit of birding. If they are photographers, they would pick up colorful birds, like the turacles, the hornbills, the shoebill.
The honorary mammals, yes. That's great.
And primates, because Uganda is generally a primate country, I would say. We've gotten some good number of clients or inquiries that are mostly interested in primates. So we stick to Kibale and Semliki, and they pick up a few mammals, but really focusing on monkeys.
Kibale, how many primate species do you have there? Is it 13 or 14? I think it's one of the highest in the world.
In Uganda,
in Kibale specifically.
In Kibale, we've got 13 primate species.
13 primates. Yeah. That's
a
lot. Yeah. Wow.
Thanks, Harriet. Your story is so interesting because it brings together so many ideas about why mammal watching can help and how it happens, how it gets better, and that you talked about the community conservation angle and applying the skills you learn, and then all the hard work that goes into searching for things, but it also pays off. And I think a great example of that is Pusag's mongoose, which you spotted on a trip I was with you, and it's a very rare animal. But I know there's a lot more to that because Toma and Alex had really wanted to see that, and you put a great deal of work into trying to track it down. Do you want to talk a little bit about the story of you and Pusag's mongoose?
Oh, yes. That's one of the species. I'll say I've almost never heard of Pusag's mongoose until Toma mentioned it. I would be seated in front of the car. I take the co-driver's car, Joel is driving. I told Joel, these are hard boys. I've never heard of even what he's asking. Then we'd all shake our heads. I'm like, but these species do exist. Let us try. When we went to Semliki, Toma had the report. Was following a trip report of Pusag's mongoose in Semliki Wildlife Reserve. We were there briefly because their time was really limited. They only had 11 days. Semliki Wildlife Reserve, we spent there a few hours and we didn't have much time to really look everywhere. We missed that and proceeded to the national park. But it kept in my head. I'm like, okay, I need to read more about this. I was looking in different papers about Pusag's mongoose. I'm like, wow, this mammal exists here. After Toma's trip, few months, you contacted us. John, you contacted us about coming to Uganda, and you mentioned this as well. Now I said, the man himself is coming. How are we going to get this mangoes? I drove to Semliki 3 times with Joel, for sure, trying all the spots that were mentioned in the research trip report. I never saw the mangoes, but I was hopeful because Semliki Wildlife Reserve is an extension of the other side of Maction Falls. Most of the species we get in Maction Falls are similar species that extend to their limits in the reserve. Every time I would go to Maction Falls, I was like, okay, I'll keep an eye in this riverine kind of track. I was really keen on the habitat. And when you came, who was still in Maction Falls, planning to go to Semliki, remember? I was looking at other things, but for sure hopeful, like this mongoose was on my head. I'm like, maybe. And for sure, you can't believe sometimes magic happens. It was right there crossing the track in front of us. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? I was shaking. 1, 2, 3 crossing right there. I'm like, oh my God, is this real or it's a dream? Posages mangoes with John Hall. I've never seen them. It's my really first time to see them. John was inquiring about really spending time and looking for these species, and here they are. Like, you know what? It takes time. If you need to see something, you'll see it. Seriously, I was like, it's one of my special moments for sure. Finding a rare species, something I've never seen. And you know what? After your trip, we went there and saw it again. I've always been keen. Much as we go on general game drive looking for birds and other mammals, that track we saw where we found the Posages mangoes is one of the richest tracks, being close to the Nile. So most animals do come to drink water or out of water. I said, let us always concentrate on this track for, possible more records of Posages mangoes. And since then, I've seen them 4 or 5 times in the same area for sure. So that is another good finding.
And that's amazing that this is a species that was known, I think, from about 10 specimens in the whole of history. It had been recorded sort of 10 times in museums. And yet you have now found a place where it's kind of reliable to see one. And that's huge. It was also one of my very special moments seeing it with you. And wow. I still get chills thinking about it. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So speaking of rare species, Harriet, one of the hardest species to see on the African continent is the African golden cat, right? It's one of those that people who've lived in Africa for many, many years, researchers and scientists who get out into the field, etc., have either never seen or perhaps caught a glimpse of one crossing the road. And it's also probably one of the species that people who are after all of the cat species of the world, that's probably their number one species. And you, of course, have not only seen it, but you have now found a place where you've been able to see it fairly reliably. Can you please tell us about that?
Wow, African golden cats. Like I've just said, these are like species, you'd say they are either mystery or they never exist, but they do. African golden cat, Omwaga, is a species of cat that I grew up hearing about. They would come to our homes and take goats. We wake up in the morning, we never saw them. We would wake up in the morning and find goats gone, but my grandfather would definitely, they knew because they were hunters. They knew they were in the forest, they would come, they were likely to come and steal our goats. He called them Omwaga is the name for the African golden cat. So every time would remind us in the house, can you go and make sure that the goat's house is fully locked up to avoid possible Omwaga coming to take them? So, but how does Omwaga look like? He said it's a cat, like it's more like a leopard, but slightly smaller and very, very, aggressive. It can also eat you. That's how he would scare us. It would eat us. We used to hear Omwaga until I was an adult. Seeing Omwaga for my first time was I drove from Fort Portal. Fort Portal is the nearest town, I would say 35 kilometers from Kibale. And I was driving through the national park around 7 a.m. It was right on the roadside. I'm like, wow, this is the golden cat. Of course, even if you've never seen it, the pictures. The other similar, like I know how a leopard looks like, I know how a savo cat looks like. I was following very much on the Ngogo. Ngogo is a research station in Kibale National Park, and they have been setting camera traps for many years, looking for the golden cat. So I'd read a lot about golden cats, and it was right there. Never scared at all. I parked my car, it looked at me, I looked at it. I even left when it was still on the roadside, just in its own business, not shy, never scared. It's like, wow, I was shaking. My heart was like, what? That was my very first time. I was guiding in Kibale National Park for 6 years. I never saw this cat, and here it is, just in the middle of the road. I'm in my own business. I'm like, wow, this is how things happen. My second time was when I was leading a birding trip in Buindi in a section called Ruhija. Walking during the day, I was up in front and having the rest of the team behind me. It was just sleeping in the middle of the trail. So us saw me and just looked around, took its time, and walked out of the trail. No panic, nothing. I was like, wow, this was now the dark moth, the gray moth. The one I saw first in Kibale was the real golden moth. And now, when the Thomas came recently in 2021, I heard him talk a lot about the golden cat. You know, he was talking of the rare species. So I mentioned to Joe, this is the cat I have only seen twice in my life. And Thomas wants to see it on this 10-day trip. Let us try.
Thomas.
We tried a little bit, but of course, you know, you're not going to see it. We actually never ended there. We tried here, we tried in Ruhija, because we were doing almost 24 hours for sure. The reason we said these were hard boys, they would not even sleep in the car during the day when we are driving long distances. They never slept during day, they never slept at night. I'm like, wow, what special foods do these boys eat? I'm like, okay, let us put that aside. And now Kevin is my firstborn. He's now 18. He told Mom, but this is a big deal. The golden cat is a big deal. Why don't we do our best to find it? I'm like, Kevin, I've worked in this forest for six years. Every day I'm in the forest, I've never seen it. How best do you want me to try? Because he was following a lot about the lynx and, you know, snow leopards on documentaries, you know, how they find those rare, difficult species. He said, look at this, see how they are finding lynx. We can also do our best. I'm like, okay, let us try. So we asked one of our partners, Chris, to come with cameras, you know, these camera traps. To set them in the forest, but you know, you just try and set them in the forest. The reason we wanted to do that is maybe because every time we walk in the forest, it's mostly daytime. It could be mostly active at night, and at night we are never deep in the forest. So we tried targeting trails that are deep in the forest, and also targeting areas where there are many duikers. You know, they prey on duikers and forest guinea fowls. Those are the areas where we set our cameras. Chris brought 2 cameras and we identified places, we put them in, but we kept checking at least weekly and there was no luck. You would find every other creature in the forest, you know, like the Alexander Kuzmases, all the genets, everything that moves in that forest, you'd collect it, you'd find it in the camera, but never the golden cat. I was like, really, does this cat exist in this park, or they're extinct? Maybe the poachers have killed them all. That was about 10 kilometers away from Ngogo Research Station, where there are really many cameras. They have been putting cameras to get it. So now I started cooking in my head. I'm like, what if I contacted Kaheru? Kaheru is one guy I know, I've known right from childhood. He used to be a poacher hunting with my grandfather. And because my grandfather talked a lot about Omwaga, I remember at one point he came saying, oh, Omwaga has eaten our daika. They would set in snares in the forest. And if they don't hurry to inspect, to check on them, they'd find Omwaga has already taken it. It's like struggling in the snare, and Omwaga, you know, is the target. The golden cat would pick them up. I'm like, let me contact Kaheru. I drove to Kaheru. We actually drove. I went with Joel, my other driver. We discussed about it. Let us drive to Kaheru's home. Kaheru, being an ex-poacher, I had arrested him during my time when I was still working with Uganda Wildlife Authority. He knew, oh, Harriet is back again. I'm like, I'm back now, but as a friend, and we need to talk. He was almost running because he first shut in his door and wanted to, like, you know, lock himself inside.
Poor Kaheru.
So I told him, it's now, I'm here to talk. It's good news. I asked Kaheru, we've been struggling to see the omwaga, the golden cat. I know you did, you poached with my grandfather, and he talked a lot about locations. There's even a place I remember my grandfather mentioning as Akomwaga. Akomwaga means a spot that, you know, a golden cat spot. I'm like, why did he name, or how did that name come about? It's a spot in the forest. It's called Akomwaga. And that's when he brought in the stories. They used to eat our meat. Like, we would set in snares, and before we come to remove the animal, if it's trapped, the golden cat would take it up. So Kaheru told me, okay. So he also asked me, for how long have you put your cameras in the forest? I told him, it's now 2 months and we have completed nothing. Kaheru asked me, which spots have you put the cameras? I told him the several spots. You know, this guy for sure knows the forest better than any ranger in Kibale National Park, better than any researcher in Kibale National Park. He's like, I don't know. He's just genius in the forest. So Kaheru told me, those places you've put in your cameras, you can even spend 10 years without anything. He even laughed at me and told me, you know what? I'm going to take you to 3 spots. If you don't get a golden cat within a week, don't pay me. That's what he told me. We had only 2 cameras and we followed him. Definitely, he was now the king of the forest. We followed him. It was not even far from the forest edge, for sure, like not far from the forest edge. We set in our first camera, of course, following his instructions, put here, put one here. Okay, let's go. We followed him, put another one here. And of course, our routine was to check after 1 week. We checked our first camera after 1 week and we found like it had a golden cat 3 days after we had set it.
No way.
with him, for sure.
Wow.
And was this big, like expecting female, I'm sure it's already having young ones. And he was like, I told you confidently. So we moved to the second one. It had nothing. He told me, do you want to leave the camera here or I put you to another location? We asked him, we wanted to change the camera to another location because even him, he knew the territory, like how big the territory of the golden cat would be. He told us, if you want another one, another different color, let me take you to another place. We moved with him. These are all forest, we're moving in the forest trails, whereby for sure I've moved before, but you know, uniquely places that are swampy, bit of grassland, like, you know, secondary forest. It's a national park altogether, but different kind of habitats. Wherever you'd take us, you'd see, oh, this is a different kind of environment. It's a forest that is, you know, in transition. It's a secondary forest. It's not yet a complete primary forest. The second time he put us, we again got the golden cat in the camera. Now those are 2 sightings within a short time of period. So we decided to employ Kaheru and be with us on camera monitoring and the rest of the drives that we did with our clients to find the golden cat. In May, that was in May last year, is when we got Jens. Jens was more interested in the golden cat. He was requesting for like a 10 days trip. And we suggested many days in Kibale National Park, at least giving it 5 to 7 days trying. We had high hopes based on the camera results, and we moved with Kaheru now in the car in the areas where we closely had seen them in the cameras. We tried the first day, the second day, the third day, we got it with Kaheru, and this was on a game drive, but in the middle of the forest. It was like, oh, it's there. It's even the first one to actually spot it. It was like 4-5 meters from our car, and it was right there and was not moving, never bothered, you know. So yeah, Kaheru was a big deal for us, knowing his forests and history of the Omwaga, and yeah, that for sure, that one I count it on Kaheru.
And how many times have you shown them to clients? How many groups have seen them?
3 so far.
Wow, that's amazing. It's funny because people like Kaheru, these people are just amazing natural historians, and they just pick up on so much of what's going on around them that you and I, we're just not tuned into. And so I'm sure there's so many places around the world that have a Kaheru over there, and it's just a case of finding them and then bringing them to light and having them help us find all these mammal species. So that's absolutely wonderful.
For sure, what I would say about the golden cats, it needs time. And, you know, if you have the time, this area where we mainly concentrate in, we have about 4 different like territories where we concentrate on, all in one big long stretch that is a very quiet road. This is the road that if you're there, you're only there alone. There are no motorbikes, no any other cars. It's a road deep in the middle of the forest. And all you need is more time. We've used different strategies for sure. First of all, driving slowly as you flash, you know, thermal cameras for those who come with them, and spotlighting. So far, all the sightings we've gotten have been through spotlighting. But we've used different methods. Sometimes we park the car in the middle of the road and you look behind and back and just hope something will cross in. We've used all sorts of methods that we really don't know which one will work, and something works out at the end of the day. Yeah.
So Harriet, with all this business you're bringing in and all the mammal tourism, do you see any evidence that attitudes in local communities around Uganda are changing towards conserving mammals?
Oh yes, for sure. This is a big deal. I would say putting national parks aside, where we mostly focus into, you know, looking for the cats, for the gorillas and chimpanzees and the lions, there is this extra mile where mammal watchers go, for example, looking for the bats' roost, where bats are roosting, you know, pangolins, different species outside conservation areas, whereby these are species that were almost ignored, or people would even ask themselves, this one also is important. So someone would really come to see these bats and photograph the bats and spend most of the time looking at the bats. Putting that aside, we've had many local guides coming up. You know, we don't do these jobs alone. When we get groups coming in, we involve so many site guides. We've been training everyone to know to know where special animals are found and when, what time, how. It's been everyone almost getting involved. And once everyone is involved in this manner, it means they are protecting and loving nature and conserving it. People are getting more money and awareness about conservation and conserving it.
Harriet, I think we're out of time, but I could sit and listen to these stories all afternoon, but I know you're also very busy. Thank you so much. That's an amazing life story. And I think, was it your grandmother who said, look, you're a great girl? I wish she and her grandfather were still, and your grandfather was still around to see you now and to hear these stories. They would be so proud, I'm sure, of all you've done in your life, and also of all you've done for mammal watchers like me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's lovely to see you again.
Yes, Harry, it's an astonishing story. I have to admit, like John, I've loved listening to all of your stories and just how you came to be a guide, and now pretty much the top mammal guide in the whole of Uganda. It's absolutely astonishing. Congratulations and well done.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Mammal Watching with Charles Foley and John Hall. You can find other episodes at mammalwatching.com/podcast.